G'day, guys. Well, another afternoon, evening. Let me just. My seat's out of whack, out of the. Sort of. I think. Okay. G'day, guys. Yeah, setting up last minute. I looked at the time and go, oh shit, it's nearly 6 o'clock. And I was just getting some clothing out of the actual dryer. So, yeah. Washer, dryer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, yeah, need to sort that out after this evening. God, everybody's got a title, which is good to see. G'day, Dr. Cynthia. Yes. If, and may I say, you are probably more worthy of it than Greta. Lambs, mate. Oh, you need a nurse, period. I will say no more. And actually, that's the last comment in StreamYard. Nothing's actually popped up yet. It's perfect. It's either streaming along. I have to wait for a couple to come through, and then they'll bounce all in there, and or move my spot. But it doesn't worry because we're still in the beginning part of it. Still trying to finish my oxalate juice. It's going to be cold. Yes, I usually run my coffees down to cold. Doing other things and just sipping. So it ends up cold, all my coffees in the end. Yeah, well. More important things to do than drink coffee. Read stuff, learn stuff. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Or look at interesting pictures. Yes. Anyway, oh, come on, StreamYard. Pop things through, please. Oh, God. I'll put my banner up as well. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we still haven't got anything. God almighty. So we'll just move down. Morning from G'day, Dave. Good to see you up and about, mate. Up for the early coffee, is that it? Good to see you here. I'm T2. Good evening, Harry. How was lunch today? Very porkish. After that, I had to actually sort out my sister's boxes. So long last, we're shipping half of them out. So she'll get them. So hopefully on Monday or Tuesday, the courier company will come through, pick them up from Dad's. So half of that's gone. I'm still waiting to see when the borders will open, when we can move the cat. Actually, the funny thing is the cat's actually calmed down. You know, it was a bit erratic, a bit, not happy being there, as you can understand, away from my sister for a while. But, today it was quite blasé. It was quite easy, at ease, even with me, which normally it isn't. So, yes. So things have improved on that front. Oh, come on, StreamYard. God almighty. When is this stuff going to pop through? Oh, God. Yes, so let me just go down the list here. Yep. Do you think humans are able to handle botulism if trained? Don't know, actually. Do not know. Maybe if you desensitize, I think you're able to tolerate anything if you desensitize things over time. So, yep, if you look at things, people can get desensitized to drugs, alcohol, all sorts of things, and they need more. So I don't think it's not impossible, but I've never seen a study to be able to say, oh, here's a study, here's proof. Maybe, possible, since other things are possible. Could be. That's all I could say on that. Oh, amateur hour. Oh, come on, T2, amateur hour. It's stream. I mean, give us a break. I'll actually share the damn thing. There you go. Look where we're stuck. We're actually stuck at that one. Nothing is populated beyond this point. Do you see? You can see basically it stopped there. Nothing beyond that is populated in for me to actually put anything on the board. So what do? I have to wait. And it's gonna what will happen is it'll get a cascade coming right through in a second. So it just gives you the shits. Well, nearly. Yeah, it'd be quite smelly if it did. Yes. So look, luckily I've got the little panel over here, so I can actually read it from the YouTube panel. And sorry, but until we get StreamYard to start doing something, please. Yeah. Oh God. Hopefully, if you guys add a few more questions, it'll probably force it eventually at some threshold. So just put yes, yes. You know, you know. Yeah, anything will do. You're not getting triggered, are you, Harry? Am I? Yes. Bit of random, but managed. Clumsily, sprained by a few weeks ago. All improving, but from a carnival angle, anything in particular for promoting muscle fiber repair? Oh, look, I mean, the older you get, it is a bit of an issue, but it's probably the fat soluble vitamins, sort of increasing them, taking rest takes a bit longer. Probably eggs are much better for healing. I mean, they actually provide an egg type formula for people like burns victims. They actually increase their eggs. I usually say to people, have 10 eggs or 12 eggs. Extra cholesterol is always required. It's like pathogens, fighting off pathogens. Cholesterol, LDL requirements go up. So cholesterol requirements go up. So if you basically give your body more of the nutrients that it needs, and the white parts of the egg also have sort of more of the collagen type aminos, that helps. So usually for like burns victims and people like that, they usually give them sort of eggs type foods. They actually have a supplement. It's a sort of an egg powdered supplement thing. So yeah, consider something like that, which is an option. Yeah, that's what I would think. Okay. Do you think the 2,000 average calories per day is too high for the average person? Yeah, basically. Your calories shouldn't be based on some sort of artificial number. They should be based on your requirements for your physiological size. So, that's what they should be. Let me just find. So I'll just share that screen there. So as you can see, this is a calorie calculator sort of thing. So we'll just leave it as it is at the time. We'll put it 70 kilos there. Okay, and what's the average size of about 175? In that regard, since we don't have the North American crowd and the majority are from Europe to Australasia, so we're in the metric system. So, and if we look at, and we'll just put a 40-year-old as a sense, and like basal, you're basically looking at 1,600 calories. Sedentary with little or no exercise. For maintenance, you're nearly 2,000. For mild weight loss, 1,700. Weight loss, 1,400. Extreme weight loss, obviously, if you're calorie restricting or you're on a carbohydrate primarily diet, you just basically your metabolic rate will nosedive over time. So, but this is just looking at just from the beginning point, isn't it? They got some other sort of dietary sort of crap advice. I pretty much ignore all that. You can go for, light exercise and all that. Then your caloric requirements for maintenance go to 2,200. So depends on your size, your weight, your age, your activity levels. There are other settings here. You can actually try different types of formulations that are used out there. It's not a bad site. It gives you an idea. It gives you an idea what you would need for maintenance, what you would need to basically for slow weight loss, which is what I tend to recommend. So this 2,000 sort of arbitrary number for the average person is just basically an oxymoron. It's a joke in that regard. So pretty much I would ignore it completely. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically stop sharing. I'm going to pop out of the actual broadcast and come back in, and hopefully that will reset the actual comments and we can get them. So just bear with me for a second, guys. Okay. And I'm Yep, it has sorted it out. Thank the fuck for that. Okay, so that was the next comment, me just talking shit. And and Dave from Barcelona, and a few other comments, and nurse comments. You guys are deviants, that's all I can say. T1 and T2, you bloody have issues. You need to get yourself examined, properly examined. And I mean really properly examined. Gloves and all. Do it properly. Oh, nurse trouble will sort you out. Oh, God. And we will move beyond these little points until we get to another question. Yes, so yeah, look, I usually say to people, if your weight's stable and all that, eat to your appetite. Your body really knows best. Eat to the, to the level. But if you're trying to lose weight, you like in the keto days, you sort of have to manage a bit the calories and stuff like that. You got, and don't go too high on the on the actual proteins, because it will push you out of gluconeogenesis, out of ketosis, and you want to stay in ketosis. So it means that if you're a female, stick to about 20% of your calories in protein, not the 25, which is what I sort of recommend for people that are trying to maintain, muscle mass and stuff like that into old age. For men, 35, then drop back to 30, so you can still be in a low-grade ketotic, or even possibly 25 for a short period of time, like a year or whatever, to lose some weight. So play around with those things. This is not an ideological thing, if you want to lose more weight, you basically got to release more free fatty acid, more fats out of your adipose, out of your fat cells. Simple as that, So you lower insulin, you won't waste away muscle like the vegans do. You will start oxidizing, burning all that fat. So that's where the focus needs to be. Do you know anything about concentrated K? Is it a good product? No idea. So is that a vitamin K2 formulation? I think somebody asked me that a while ago. I think it was was it? Can't remember now. What sort of product is it? Yeah, vitamin K, all natural vitamin K1, MK4, MK7. Okay, so it's don't waste your time. You only need MK4. MK4 does everything K1 does, everything all the other metaquinones do. So, you will get some of the other metaquinones from some dairy and some foods, some animal foods. And you don't need much. I've never heard of somebody deficient in K1 or the other metaquinones. Never. You're never going to get deficient in those. Both the bacteria create some of them, and your body actually creates the majority. Actually end up getting converted to MK4 anyway, because that's what the body preferentially uses. It's the animal form, which is primarily used throughout the body. So, name a place in the body that doesn't use it. It's used endemically everywhere. That's why it doesn't stay resident. You can give yourself massive doses of MK4 and it gets just sucked up by every single cell. The resident time is next to nothing, very short. Where all these other things stay in the circulation for too long, that means they're not being used. The body doesn't have a purpose for them, can't store them, can't use them. And if the body can't store or use something, it has the potential of becoming a pro-oxidant. So not a good thing. So I would probably give it a miss. I would focus on pure MK4 products if you want to supplement, and you've got a reason for it. You've got, let's say, a lot of calcification in soft tissue, like kidneys, like heart, like certain parts of the body, and you want to decalcify from in a low inflammatory state always, as I've always pointed out to you guys. Don't go hard in a high inflammatory state. You want to be in a low inflammatory state. And that's pretty much it in that regard. What do you think is the cause of anxiety and depression? Could be a number of factors. There can be genetic predisposition to it. There can be certain types of genes that over a number of generations have become more pronounced because of inappropriate diets. We've seen that in like Pottinger's cats and a whole lot of other animal studies where we've seen certain types of anxiety disorders and depression and behavior problems in rats that a number of generations have had their diet altered. So we know it can happen. And so when somebody says, just do a carnivore diet and that'll eliminate all your depression and anxiety and everything else, that's wrong. What a carnivore diet will do, a species appropriate diet, it will basically silence some of those genes and modulate some of the other genes to a level where it's not as severe. But in some cases, some people may still require some medication to manage it for a certain period of time, maybe a lifetime, maybe not. And if people within their family maintain a species appropriate diet over a number of generations, you can reverse the condition. And that was shown with Pottinger's cats. Certain cats, up to fifth generation could no longer, reproduce and had all sorts of abnormalities and behavior problems. So it wasn't only abnormalities, but also behavior problems. And then basically, if you stopped it at about the third generation, then started improving the nutrition of the subsequent generations, some of these genes got completely turned off or silenced. And so as a consequence, these people recovered completely, or their rats started behaving more like what would be expected from a rat. We can't do those experiments on humans because rats only live for about 2 odd years on average, which means you can do it over a decade on rats. You can't do the same experiment. And you could probably do it if you're like with cats, with Pottinger's cats. He could do it because why? Because he was committed. He committed a large part of his life to doing this research. Not many people out there are going to do that. They're not going to basically spend 5 generations on 5 generations of cats, which is a number of decades of research to basically prove a point. He was one of those exceptions to the rule when it comes to researchers that were willing to basically, apply the hypothesis in a very methodical way over a number of generations. We can't do that. We can't lock up humans and do experiments between twins over multiple generations and stuff like that to see what works and what doesn't. What we can go, as I said, I've been saying for ages, is look at the archaeological evidence. And what that shows is the collagen of bones shows that the isotopes of nitrogen-15 are very high, which basically tells us that these, both Homo sapiens and hominins, over a vast period of historical time, were basically super or hyper carnivores for most of their existence. And that's all we can, I can say that is the best proof we've got. Why is it the best proof? Simple. It's because it's definitive, it's strong, empirical. Bones do not lie. You can't have bones from different regions of the world, from different periods of the world, exhibiting the same characteristics. It tells you something. And then it matches also the weather and the type of animals around, the megafauna and all that. So the reality is, it's a non-issue. But, how do you deal with these things? It's not an easy thing. Obviously, sleep is really important for these conditions. Things that are basically addictive substances like alcohol, tobacco, caffeine for certain people can be problematic if you've got these conditions. So you need to clean up your diet, really go much harder than the average person out there. Amber O'Hearn, she basically really went hard on some of these things and really was able to completely down-regulate the genes that are involved in basically her bipolar. And I don't think Amber is taking any medication for her past bipolar condition. So if you've got a species-appropriate diet, less sugar will reduce anxiety. Better nutrition will improve all that. But the other thing that also helps increase your happy hormones is exercise. Physical movement is also important. It's not only diet. Physical movement can actually provide you a bit more euphoria, a bit more happiness, a bit more. It tends to also crush cortisol, so does salt. So these sort of things should be part of your diet, and you should be getting the results. You got a bit of a trial and error to see how much you can modulate it and how much you can basically either really reduce the dosage you require of a specific medication or eliminate it. I think the potential is for most people to eliminate when it comes to specific things like anxiety and depression. I think diet can more or less eliminate it if you've got a clean diet. It just means that a person who's actually activated some of those genes needs to turn them off, which means you need to be a bit more cleaner than the rest of us. No cheats, because cheats will cause you issues. I mean, Bart learns that when he basically does a few cheats. I can do cheats and it doesn't affect me mentally, but him, it does. And he knows it, but he still does it because he's got other stresses in his life and he finds it as a coping mechanism. But, I usually try and encourage him and all that because we're good friends, good mates. That's what mates do. And that's what we have to do amongst ourselves, trying to help each other, get a bit of information, send me an email. If you've tried something and it's sort of, what do you think? Should I try this? Try to work out some of the details. I don't mind, let me know. If I can help you, yep, definitely. I'll try and help you. If you've got a really bad sort of situation and you're really struggling, I would say look at things like light. I've changed my lights, and I can tell you my sleep quality has actually improved in the last couple of weeks since I've got rid of more blue light in my environment. It's made a difference to my sleep quality as well. And getting up in the morning, and I haven't had one single night that I've woken up in the middle of the night. And before, at least once a week, it would happen occasionally. Now it doesn't happen, which is good. So I'm getting better sleep quality. So they are doing the trick, So I'm getting better melatonin levels, which means it's keeping me asleep, and improving my health because it's, melatonin is a very potent, 100 times compared to many other antioxidants, as a potent repairer of mitochondria. You want to be healthy in old age. You want to basically have good, functioning of your brain, your tissue, and all that. You need good sleep. You need good melatonin to basically do all those repairs to your mitochondria, to repair the nanomotors that may have got damaged from some inappropriate foods, or some too much toxic blue light or whatever. So these sort of things you've got to look at as well, because they also affect mood, anxiety, depression, all these sort of things. But there are other things in our environment. There are family relationships, things about being more mindful, being, doing a bit of yoga, a bit of breathing exercises, relaxing, trying to relax, try to extricate yourself from difficult circumstances. Sometimes it's, because of your financial circumstance or stuff like that, you sometimes have to step back from all that and say, how can I reconfigure my life? And that's what I had to do years ago. And I, probably it's the reason I usually say to people, their life actually becomes less stressful because they become utilitarian. They say, do I need to get something? See, when I don't purchase, I no longer purchase things. I just basically, do I need something? Yes, I'll get it. Do I not need it? Is there a reason for it? No, I don't do it. So, I manage my life better. And that's what you sort of have to learn, to manage your life and all that. And then you'll have money aside, which you'll be able to invest in stocks and bonds and whatever else you want to get into, housing or whatever. But you'll have that capacity to do those sort of things. You won't have that capacity if you're in the quagmire, because finances can play a big role in depression, anxiety, and sometimes I find that the most honest thing to do is just sit down with, if you've got a partner, and basically just lay it all down, and sometimes some people will walk away from things like that. That's a risk, I know. So you have to make that choice yourself. I can't tell you what to do. You're an adult, you got to take responsibility for yourself. But I've found in my life that certain people walked out on me, and that was the best thing they ever did to me, because they freed me up to find better people, and I did, and I'm happier, and I've got a better life. So, sometimes, yeah, life's not easy. It's got a lot of, things. So you have to really step back, take a bird's eye view. T2, you know what I mean? Bird's eye view, mate. And literally, consider best way of actually approaching life. Lay down your assets, your liabilities, the issues and all that. Put them on a piece of paper, big, large piece of paper, all these sort of things. It's easy to hazard that way. And sometimes it's also easier to manage some of those things. You don't have to do everything in one hit. You can do small little bits every day, every second day, every third day, every week, one task every week that I must do to improve my life. You do that, you'll be surprised by the end of the year how many things have changed in your life and are much better. You'll be shocked. But you have to have a plan. Without a plan, you're just like a aimless, it's like a boat without a rudder. You're going nowhere. So, yeah, I hope that sort of, we went a bit beyond the nutritional side, but, when it comes to these sort of issues, it is beyond the nutritional side. It's a human is not just nutrition. They are the psychology, their relationships with people, their financial status, all sorts of things are interplaying. And so people need to consider all these things and literally lay their cards out, and look at, where they are and where they would like to be. And if they're not sure where they would like to be, at least identify the issues and try and mitigate some of them as much as possible. It may not be a perfect outcome a year forward, but it will be probably better than where they are right now. So anyway, I hope that helped. It was a bit beyond the scope of probably what you initially wanted. But anyway, hi. Just have a question about iodine. Should I be taking selenium supplements or meat-based diet is enough to fix? Yeah, meat-based diet. I mean, if you go and look at the one that I did about fish and stuff like that, about, which covers selenium and mercury and all that. Which one of the fuckers was it? Let me just find it. Can't even remember my own stuff. Fucking useless, aren't I? What the fuck? What's Bobby doing? Yeah. Sarah's vegan feminization. That'd be funny. I'll have to watch that later tonight. Anyway, back to it. Where are we? My videos. And it's called Mercury and Selenium Content in Seafood. And so it'll give you a bit of an idea where you can get sort of selenium from certain types of foods. I would also look at liver and eggs. They're also a very good source. So is meat. And depending on what your condition is, if you've got a thyroid issue, I usually sort of recommend people look at about 200 to 300 micrograms. I sort of position myself at about 250 micrograms of selenium every day, more or less on average. Sometimes 200, another day it's going to be 300, but on average through the week I try and I've just worked out all the foods and I've just sort of then go, okay, I need, this, that, blah, done, so the sort of option in that regard. And also you've probably seen yeah, I know, amateur time, T1. Okay. So let me just share that for a sec. and selenium. So don't worry about the Brazil nuts; they're all over the place. And you can actually see yellowfin tuna, just 100 grams, which is 3.5 ounces. You're looking at basically 200% of what they would consider, which is 55, sorry, which is about 110 nearly, or 100 and not 10, 105 micrograms, or 108. Yeah, well, so, in that regard, if you had there'd be 200 micrograms. There's, a good level. But, you may have some other foods as well. Oysters are pretty high. Pork, if you're looking at pork, you would be looking at, if we're looking at that, so let's say with pork, 250 divided by 47.4 times 100, which is about, one big steak, 500, which is about 1.15 pounds of meat in that regard. So a bit over a pound of meat, of pork in that regard. You can look at combinations. Most people have 2 meals a day, like I do, and so you can look at the sort of different foods that you're eating and get an idea. You can also go down here where they've actually got this like foods high in selenium, and so this is like a ranking thing. And what you go is you don't go for this sort of stuff. You go for the highest, 100. You go for the common ones. A lot of these other ones tend to be like the branded ones and all that. They're like fortified crap and stuff like that. So I usually don't tick those. And then you can look at, I've even got vegan there. Why would you bother? Bioavailability in some of those foods is shit when it comes to minerals. They're chelated. But anyway, so you'd look at, for instance, things like eggs and dairy as an example, like poached egg or a raw egg or whatever. So let's even cheeses, 100 grams. So 100 grams of, like you've got here, the poached egg as an example. So if you were to look at, get rid of that, 250. So let's say you were just going to eat eggs that whole day, no meat, just eggs. We're joking now, but it's just an example. Do not have single food diets. Not a good idea. They create nutritional imbalances. This is just for purposes of explaining. Divide that by 30.6. That means that's 8 eggs. Sorry, that is 16 eggs, because an egg is about 50 grams, approximately 50, 60 grams. That's about 100 grams. So it's about 16 eggs will give you that amount. So you could get half that amount from a steak and 8 eggs, and you could get that whole amount for your day as an example. So why do you need to supplement? There is no need in that regard. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, are supplementing for no good reason for a lot of things, when if you eat a species appropriate diet and the right sort of foods, you will get what you need. So there's the link for that. So back to it. Yeah, so basically you can actually sort that out with a species appropriate diet. It's nothing difficult whatsoever, Anna. Just do that. You'll be fine. There's plenty of things. And iodine is the same thing. There's an iodine information there as well. Fish a very good source of iodine as well. There's a number of other things, so you can mix and match. Iodine's usually, I'm looking at, I would say keep it around about the 150. So if you're a bit higher or a bit lower, between the 100 to 200, if you're swinging somewhere between there, don't get too wound up about it. At the end of the day, for thyroid, both to suppress T3 reverse, T3, and to get better conversion of T4 to T3, you need selenium. It's the big player in the game of the thyroid game. So iodine and selenium are the big players. Zinc plays a secondary role, and a few other, like copper and all that, play minor roles. But the big players are selenium and iodine. So you got those in the good levels, your thyroid should work fine, and you shouldn't be losing your hair. You shouldn't be doing a lot of things in that regard, unless you're insulin resistant and you're eating inappropriately and they're really making things a mess and things then not working properly. But that's a different issue altogether. In this community, we shouldn't really have those issues. I would hope not. How is it that cooked meat has such a detrimental effect on cats, seeing that cooking meat barely affects the nutritional status? Well, cats are different. They don't have certain enzymes. Our hominins acquired the enzymes. Cooked meat isn't very good also for chimps. So chimps, as you know, you've seen my docos on the chimps, and they can consume a lot of raw meat, but they don't cook their meat, and they never will unless they evolve beyond that point. Humans, on the other hand, or hominins, 1.5 million years ago, that was before Homo sapiens existed, which is 350,000 odd years ago. So pretty much we've got the genetics, the enzymatic structures, or the enzymes that are required to deal with cooked meat and stuff like that. And we denature our meat completely in our very acidic stomach. So we absorb things in a very radically different way than other animals do. Okay? This is why other animals like birds can also eat cooked meat. They also can cook, putrid meats, because they also have very low pH of 1.5 or lower, which is what we have. A child has less than 1. So we're able to manage those. And a lot of people say, oh, you're denaturing the proteins. Well, in a very acidic stomach, you denature every fucking protein. So that is why there are special enzymes that can refold things properly after when they get absorbed. So your stomach denatures things, whether it's raw, cooked, or whatever, and then all these enzymes actually restructure it again. That's why they're there, to basically, these little machines, to do their job. So we don't have that problem, and we can extract more, both, more in terms of nutrition and stuff like that. I'm not against raw meat, because I actually consume raw meat myself, cured raw meats and raw meats. So, unlike a number of other carnivores that will find it disgusting, I also eat foods that are basically fermented as well. But that's me. I've grown up in a culture that ferments a number of things and has done that for thousands of years. The Greeks have got a lot of fermented dishes when it comes to these sort of things. It's not only in the dairy world, which we've got a lot of fermented stuff that some people would find very unappetizing, but also a number of other things that, let alone we've got snail dishes, we've got all sorts of things. You think the French are into snails, so are we, and a lot of other things. So, so basically we have that capacity. Cats don't. Cats, like tigers, lions, and all the other cat family, they basically eat raw meat directly from the animal. They kill it, they eat it. And so cooked, basically, they can't manage it. in their body. We don't really know well, beyond Pottinger's cats, which we know that cooked meat isn't good for cats. We don't know enough what are the enzymatic processes or what are the biochemical processes that are happening in the cat that create those problems. So maybe they don't have the capacity well enough to deal with denatured proteins. Maybe they don't have the capacity well enough to deal with advanced glycation in products. Maybe they don't have enough to deal with a number of things. The problem is, I know of Pollinger's cats, but I haven't really looked into cat research to be able to really tell you why. And when I did take a bit of a, let's say, a look out of interest, I didn't really find much beyond Pottinger's cats and that research. Most of the other research is all about drugs for cats and dogs, and and a lot of meal preparations and things like that. It's just nonsense, modern day shit, So yeah, that's all I've got, in terms of the science. In terms of the position on that, there's not much else, unfortunately. Hope that sort of elucidated a few things or cleared up a few things, but that's all there is. That's all I can say. Could you explain the mechanisms of what causes LDL particles to stay in circulation for longer? Thank you. Well, it depends on your ApoE type. So if you've got an ApoE of 4,4, what happens is you will take up remnant chylomicrons much faster, and it means also you will put into circulation far more VLDL, and VLDL goes to IDL, which is that intermediate density lipoprotein, then all the way down to LDL and the different fractions of LDL. But there can be a number of reasons. There can be sort of insulin resistance that can play a role in that as well. Low HDL, because HDL is required to basically regulate both the remnant chylomicrons, but also to take some of the cholesterol back from the LDL. That means sit there and so I'll take that off you and take them. And so in a sense, remove some of their requirements to stay in circulation. And there can be other derangements sort of where an LDL basically gets damaged, glycated, or damaged internally because of the fatty acids, like seed oils and stuff like that cause oxidation, or there may be too much oxidation within the bloodstream and can damage the ApoB 100 receptor. And if that receptor's stuffed, it will never go out of circulation until it basically oxidizes and degrades and actually just falls apart in your arteries, and then macrophage and everything else will have to come around and try and clean it all up, the mess. So there's a number of reasons why in that regard. But one of the biggest ones is pretty much, too many of those sugar molecules sticking onto the pericellular matrix of the outer perimeter of the lipoproteins. That's the big one, and the oxidation byproducts that are circulating around. So that's as far as the damaging effects of the receptor to be able to take it out of circulation, and other things, too many being put in to circulation, which is basically just overwhelming the capacity of the body, because you've got, let's say, too many nutrients in the body. You've eaten too much. You're engaging the Randall cycle. You've increased insulin resistance. And basically all that's happening is this stuff is circulating continuously, trying to find a place to get into one of the cells that may become slightly depleted of energy and becomes, so let's say there may be a cell here that becomes insulin sensitive and will take in some of that circulating stuff. The other ones are still in a state of resistance because they've actually down-regulated their receptors, so they won't take anything in, both in glucose and in terms of fats. And so, when the receptors are down-regulated, they basically, things will circulate until they can find a place to, so there's that sort of things. So you could actually, let's say you're eating steak and a lot of potatoes. Now, starch is going to be less glycating and less problematic, but you could actually exceed your threshold of energy requirements because you're sedentary, sitting around eating potatoes and some meats or whatever. Or the obviously would be like a pepperoni pizza and having a couple of those. So obviously then you'll have a lot of energy that will go in there, has nowhere to go because you're a couch potato, will circulate and circulate and circulate until it can find a home, until it can find enough cells, either there's enough HDL to help it, to recycle, to take some of that stuff out of circulation, or enough cells that are not in a state of insulin resistance to basically take in that energy, so they can take it out of circulation. So there's because remember, LDL is not only the cholesterol inside it. There's a whole lot of other nutrients that are in there, including the major energy nutrient, which is triglycerides. So the whole reason a VLDL shrinks all the way down to a HDL is it's because it's offloading triglycerides, fats, to the cell for the cell to oxidize. So, it just becomes smaller and smaller in size as a consequence. But why it remains resident for longer is really because of a number of issues, whether it's been damaged or whether there is too much insulin resistance and it can't basically find a place to, offload its cargo. So, yeah, those would be the easiest sort of explanations in that regard. And how would you go about checking your genetic ApoE? Just do a genetic test. It's not difficult. I know the 23andMe genetic tests does have that information. I think they may have removed it, the buggers. When I got it, they actually had the full amount. I've still got the original download, and I've downloaded since then, and luckily I kept the original download. They have stripped a lot of the stuff out of the $99 one, the cheaper one, the stuff that they had in there, or the actual in the raw data, and now a lot of those are being put into the $200 one. So you have to buy the more expensive one to get the information. And I've noticed that even the basically ApoE, some of the stuff there has been removed, which is, very annoying. So I've just recently realized that, and I'm saying to people, you either go for the more expensive one or you go for a specific ApoE gene test and nothing else. At the end of the day, if I was going to do it again, I would, if I was doing it today, I'd probably do the 200 one to get a more comprehensive. So I've got things about the choline, methylation, and everything else under the sun. So I can have a better genomics understanding of where I'm at and how I need to design my diet to basically, provide me with the micronutrients that I need for things to work properly. It's bloody annoying in that regard. These companies, initially when they first start off and they're not very big, they'll give you shitloads of stuff, and once they become very big, they will basically customize their products and make more expensive. You want more, you're going to pay more. We'll give you this just basic stuff, So it's unfortunate. I just realized very recently, luckily I had the old original download because I couldn't actually find my download, and I actually downloaded it, and I actually put it through, it wasn't Prometheus, it was the gene, what is it called? The gene, it's sort of like a gene wizard or whatever. Anyway, and some of the stuff was missing, and I'm going, huh? And I looked at my, and I did find eventually the original data was on, because that was from my work machine. I downloaded it, and then I got home and I found the old file, and I actually uploaded it on the same website that had everything. And I go, okay. And then I looked at how many the row, the rows going down, I realized that it was smaller in size. They'd actually removed a whole lot of things. That was really annoying. Luckily, I kept the original file. So, yes, now I only use that. Now, is there a research paper on the appendix being a storage of the system? Yeah, I've been saying that for ages. I remember seeing something ages ago. There was a study. It was, I can't remember whether it was a 60s study or 70s study, which looked into this. And the appendix was viewed as holding a number of the sort of bacterial strains and stuff like that were the original bacterial strains, but there wasn't a lot of information on it. But it is an area of storage. So that's what I based my opinion of that at the time. But that was the only experimental work that existed all the way back then. But yeah, if I find it, look, send me an email if you want it, if you really, really want it. And that will prompt to remind me, and then I'll look at all the shit that I've downloaded, and I'll try and find it on my desktop, and I'll basically email it to you once I find it. Yes, but it is a much older study, but I can't remember from when. It's a long, long, long time ago. I'm talking about a couple of years back now, 5 or 6 years, the last time I actually looked at that. So it was a while ago. Yes, you should tea. Yes, I don't know whether it covers birds, but then again, you're an exception to the rule of the standard bird. Okay, understand. For what I understand, it is one of the amino acids that denatures, that is denatured in cooked meats, and cats can't make it on their own. Yeah, okay, so that's what it is it? Okay, there you go. Thank you for that, mate. I appreciate it, because I don't know enough about cat physiology. So it is basically a denatured in the cooked. So yeah, so we probably don't have that issue, and a number of other animals may not have that issue, so it may not be an issue for them. I don't know about dogs. Do dogs also have that issue? They may. Do you remember which one of the amino acids it was? Chris, I'm just about to show you, mate. There you go. For some bloody reason, a few people are just asking just stock standard questions, and what is happening? They're getting basically tripped up by YouTube, our dear friends at YouTube. What is new? Nothing new, More crap, different day. Thank you, YouTube. So we, for some reason, come on, what's happening with StreamYard again? What is this damn thing today? So then I had that. Then Anna said, thank you. That was really helpful. You're welcome. Beer activates T1. We know that. T2. And gastroparesis, which is basically the ability for your colon to function. It's the fat-soluble vitamins. Some of the research that I've looked into, the collagen-degrading enzymes, the matrix metalloproteinases, seem to play a big role in regulating the collagen through the gut. It does take a certain amount of months, sometimes years, depending on the damage. People may have things, all sorts of things with their guts, diverticulitis and all sorts of bloody problems and all that. So it can take a bit of time to basically heal. But if you're, eating a diet that actually has the aminos that you'll find in sort of collagen, like more eggs, I recommend to people. Eggs are a great thing. Like even breaking your fast, have eggs. It's fantastic. It has all the type of aminos, fatty acids, and stuff like that. The profile that is really good to rebuild mucosal layer within the gut and to really sort things out. So please do consider eggs as your go-to. Maybe have more eggs than the most average person. I usually have anywhere between 4 to 8 eggs a day. Sometimes I do 12 eggs scrambled, and I do a smaller meat dish at a later time in the day. I do like eggs, but that's me. But it's good for your gut. And I know from my last gut things, my doctor said, you've got a mental issue. There's nothing wrong with your gut. But there you go. So I had it confirmed from a doctor calling me accusing me of being a hypochondriac. I don't know, maybe he's right, maybe he's not. But that was a transition issue. It took me ages to even bloody see him. It took me over a year because I was on a waiting list as a low priority. And by that time I'd been, quite heavily carnivorous, and there was no longer an issue, so they found nothing. Little. My dear younger sister, they did find some polyps in her, unfortunately, and she will have to have another test. But she's switched over to more carnivorous and cut a lot of the carbohydrates out as well, so she's much better for it. Trying to get her to reduce some of the fiber, because that's shit. Fiber damages the actual gut lining. It's not good, not needed, not required. And if you're going to have any type of foods that are carbohydrate because you want a bit for whatever bloody reason, you can't get over your addiction, then look at things like pumpkin and zucchini and stuff like that, which are far more milder on your gut and less damaging in that regard. So yes, that would be my view. I'm going to get out again and come back in because it just seems to resolve it. It is really giving me the shits tonight. Sorry about this, guys. But it's really pathetic what StreamYard is doing at the moment. I just can't. I'm not getting anything in the actual box. I don't know why. It's driving me up the wall, and it's making it really hard for me to interact with you guys. So give me a sec. I'll just pop out again. And I'll pop back in. We are back. It's moved. It's alive. Oh, God. Fuck's sake. Yeah, I need to find my spot. Where was I? It actually stripped it out of the damn thing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just jump on this. Yeah, it's driving me. Do we have celery amylase and amylase so that we can digest carbohydrates when animal foods are lacking in our environment? Are they like a backup system? They've always been there since our chimp days. We've never lost them, So, but they were less. If you look at the original, like the chimps and tribal people, they have very few amylase, in terms of celery amylase, very low. So this is why when tribal societies switch over to a carbohydrate or what I call an agriculturalist diet, they really suffer. It seems that the genes that are used to transcript these enzymes tend to be much more, let's say, flexible. So when we got into agriculture around about 10,000 years ago, or the majority of the population probably about 3,000 years ago, we saw an increase in the capacity for our body to transcript more of these enzymes. Even tribal societies, if they have been on more carbohydrate rich diet over a couple of generations, they will slowly start to increase the transcription. It seems like when it comes to things like the enzymes that are required to break down carbohydrates, fats, and proteins and all that, they seem to basically can be upregulated or downregulated depending on the diet within a very one generation in many regards. So it doesn't prove anything. It just basically means that today we have more, for the simple fact that for more generations we've been consuming far more carbohydrates for the last at least 3,000 years. So, that's the only thing. It's not a backup or anything like that. It's just basically that if a population eats more of certain things, those genes will be more pronounced and upregulated to transcript and to produce more of these enzymes. And also we've got receptors in the mouth. So when you hit a bit of sugar, even an alcohol sugar, that means we're not even talking about natural glucose or coming into the mouth. Just put an alcohol, one of these, supplements or one of these alcohol sugars that are in different, like, your keto bars and all this sort of stuff. Just that will hit the tongue and immediately tell the body to await a whole lot of sugar coming through and to upregulate these enzymes. And then these enzymes are sitting there saying, where's the action? So the body's done what it's required, but it's confused because it's created things that it doesn't need to create because there isn't stuff coming through in that case. Yes, it's not a good thing for the body. It does cause some dysregulation. And some science has been showing that anyway. So they're not good alcohol sugars, so to speak. They're not an alternative. So get off your keto snack shit, basically, is my opinion. So Harry wants to live stream the action. Nurse trouble, heh. You're a sick puppy, aren't you? God, thank God, Mum, your mummy only had one of you. I asked you earlier today about it, Harry. I bet you did. I gave you a half sick answer. Didn't that satisfy you? God. About the action. What can one say? It gets worse and worse. Can a diet consisting of 30 to 40 carbohydrates, glucose is preferable to fructose? If you actually have too much carbohydrate, depending on your state, see, if you become slightly insulin resistant, normally the body can convert, about 3% of it into fructose. It can actually end up converting of the carbohydrate up to 30% or 10 times the glucose into fructose. That is, if you're insulin resistant. What does it do that? Well, because you can take fructose and put it through the liver and convert it into fat and store it. Excess sugar needs to be dealt with. You can't have it overflowing. This is what happens with people with ApoB44s. They get chylomicrons coming in because the receptor is very receptive. It's one of those love receptors that basically the HDL just hands over the keys and goes, here you are, chylomicron, go in there. And obviously these people have ancestral genes which are not designed for a more sugar environment, and they've got shitloads of sugar in there. The liver can't manage it, can't handle it, and so it spills out a whole lot of sugar into the bloodstream. And that's not a good thing because it glycates every bloody thing. And so what the body does is to try and store it away safely. It converts part of that to fructose, and fructose then can go through a different pathway and get converted to fat, get exported out as fat, through additional VLDL production. That's why you're with a high fructose diet or or when you're insulin resistant, you produce far more VLDL, far more triglycerides. So that's why your trigs go up when you do your blood test. So definitely glucose is preferred to fructose, but 30-40% is too high in my book. Even in an active individual, why do you need it? You should definitely cut out the vegetable oil. That is damaging and rancid. It will cause a lot of oxidative stress. Plus, it will damage your mitochondria because it's very high in deuterium. So you definitely don't want that shit in there. And you don't want high levels of sugar. You don't need it. And if you want a formulation that actually can work much better, send me an email and I will send you the old bodybuilders, sort of eggs and dairy combo that they used as one of their anabolic, drinks, or it was a sort of a smoothie, a very thick type smoothie, which you use a spoon to actually eat it, that they actually used back in those days, much better than using fructose like honey and stuff like that, or other sort of crap like rice and whatever else. You don't need that shit. You can build strong muscles. Muscles are not built from carbohydrates. Okay? All you're doing is basically you're putting in a whole lot of carbohydrates, and all they're doing is creating water retention in the muscles. So they look puffier, but they're not stronger. Unless you basically want to become a bodybuilder to compete, why do you need puffiness? You need strength. So into old age. What's your thought about therapeutic use of oregano oil, the best way to increase acidity levels in the stomach? Look, I've heard that oregano oil does help in that regard as a parasitic type thing, but I would basically just, if you've got issues like that, I would, when you consume, you have to find out what sort of issues do you have a H. pylori issue? Do you have basically, candida issue? There are things you can do. So if you want some information specifically for how to eliminate, because I haven't made the video yet. People have asked me, and I've also on some of my live streams, I've showed them some of the candida protocols and some of the bacterial strains that actually can fight pathogens and stuff like that you can combine to basically, eliminate the problem, and then basically meat will just naturally acidify the stomach far more. The food that actually acidifies the stomach most is meat. Simple. In that regard. If you're not acidifying properly, or you've got malabsorption issues, it could be a number of issues. You could have a gallbladder issue. Do you know? Have you checked? And I've got information how to deal with that as well. So it depends on. I just haven't made the videos. I just, it's my time constraints. And I usually people just email me. They ask me. I give them the information. They go away and do that. But I do know I have to make a video, so I can provide that information, how to help people in a proper way. So it depends on your circumstance, depending on what your condition and all that. Do you have pain on your, on the side where your liver is, right under your rib cage? Do you have when you eat, do you feel a bit of discomfort? That's probably a gallbladder issue. You can actually rub that. Put your hand right under there and rub it. It's an old chiropractor's trick to basically release the tension and actually try to move, some of the actual bile out of there and the sludge. So choline and MK4 help with cleaning up the actual the sludge and all that. Also using, because you do malabsorb also bile. So getting bile salts is a real good thing as well if you've got that sort of condition. Using sort of HDL, hydrochloric acid, to sort of salt, which will increase the acidity as well with the meat. So salted meat plus HCl tablets and stuff like that, acidifiers. So they can all sort of help improve that. And, depending on how much H. pylori or how much candida overgrowth you have can be an issue. And this is where bile also can clean the small intestine. It will clean it right through. So that's another important factor. So it really depends on what your circumstances are and what sort of tests you've done to realize, is it something, do you know what state of affairs these body parts are, or are you just speculating? You may need to do certain tests to know, do you have SIBO? Do you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Well, bile and acidified stomach and bile will clean that out. That's the whole purpose of bile, is to clean some of that shit out, and reduce the bacterial load in those sort of areas. But it grows because you've got malabsorption issues, or you've got bile, especially gallbladder issues, tend to be very closely associated with both SIBO and with stomach acidity issues. So do you feel discomfort under your rib cage when you eat? That usually is a giveaway that you've got some either gallstones or sludge, or both. So those sort of things. So you sort of have to investigate it a bit to find out exactly where you're at, and then come back to me and say, well, what do I do with it? I know that I've got this, this, and this. How do I deal with it? So just throwing things at it in an arbitrary way, in a disorganized way, isn't going to really help fix the underlying issue. Hope that helped. What do you think of the what croissant diet created by Brad Marshall? No idea, never heard of it. Croissants? God almighty, what else? It's like the potato diet. You lose weight on it, because if a croissant diet is I don't really know, actually. No, I won't even comment, because I've got no friggin' idea what a croissant diet does. But a potato diet has basically a glucagon to insulin sort of ratio of basically 4. When you're eating a steak, a pure steak, it's 1.3. When you're eating basically a potato, it's 4. The ratio has the ability, if you're eating, let's say, an all-you-can-do buffet at McDonald's with seed oils and fructose and high fructose corn syrup and a full buffet of crap, it can go as high as 70, that ratio. So your insulin can rise quite dramatically and suppress glucagon in the toilet. So, when your insulin is just basically slightly higher than your glucagon with a potato, so it's about a ratio of 4, okay, in comparison. So that's why we say glucagon to insulin. And yeah, look, it depends. It depends, but I've got no idea about this diet. God, no fucking idea, to be honest. Yeah, it's probably another sort of heavy glucose type diet. And I would have no idea, because I've never heard about it. So, yeah, I may actually have to look it up just for the hell of it, just to find out. What are your thoughts on the WALS protocol? Thank you. The organ meats and all that are a very good idea. A lot of the vegetable stuff and all that, chelating factors and all that, probably not the best stuff. So the organ meats are what helped her, not really the other stuff. The other stuff was just peripheral, has very poor nutrition. So even though, because she comes from a vegetarian background, she gave importance to that, she slags off slightly. Terry sort of reduces the importance of meat, muscle meat, and sort of saying, oh, it's not as nutrient dense as organ meats. And that's true. But, I would rather combine organ meats with steak and get rid of the veggies. She's sort of combined the organ meats and all that. But what it did do, the organ meats was deal with all the deficiencies she had. And she would have had massive deficiencies on a plant-based diet. And that's what really turned her health around. Had she basically got rid of the vegetables as well, I suspect it would have actually done it even quicker, because that's what we've seen in the carnivore community with people with similar problems and neurological problems and, brain issues and, where even on a keto diet, it doesn't really help them. When they go full carnivore, they just resolve bipolar, all these sort of other issues, brain-related issues. So I would say it's from the standard diet, and in regards to a lot of the other ketogenic, paleo, whatever, it's probably better. Yes, it has plants like all these other diets, but it's probably a better designed plant animal-based diet. It would rank second to what I would call the carnivore diet. So the carnivore diet would be first for me, and it would be not a standard steak-only diet. I'm talking about one that combines a myriad of varied animal foods, which is what I call the Mediterranean carnivore diet, which is a sort of an oxymoron, but that's what I've called it, my style. But it would rank pretty much close second, this one as well. So, yep, I think it's really beneficial because it does have nutrient density. And when you're depleted severely and you need to fix, and especially the phospholipids in eggs and liver are very high, and the brain requires a lot of phospholipids. We know that phosphatidylserine and phosphatidylcholine are very important for brain function and all that. And so these foods tend to be higher in these. Eggs are very high, one of the highest sources in phospholipids, and a lot of the sort of stuff that you need for brain chemistry. So the sort of foods that she promotes, these things are really good for your brain. So why wouldn't they work? But she's added a few things there to, I don't know, maybe because she couldn't actually give up all her veggies from a past vegetarian diet. But at the time when the protocol was designed, it was the time when keto and paleo were very dominant. And so she had already done paleo and keto. And so it is sort of a modified paleo keto type diet, hers. That's the only difference, with more nutrient dense type foods compared to the standard keto or paleo diet. That's the difference of a protocol. So somebody that's got issues, they would do far better on that than the standard paleo or keto diet, and even the standard carnivore diet. But on a more diverse, nutrient dense carnivore diet, they would do much better, in my personal opinion. What about Roy Swank's work on diet and MS? If you look, I don't know anything about the guy. Sorry, in that guy. If so, what are your thoughts on the study? He's just limiting saturated fats. He's an idiot, to 15 grams a day, and these individuals had the best outcomes. I'd like to see the study, and I suspect these studies were based on people eating a mixed diet. So on a mixed diet, if you're eating some carbohydrates, it seems that lowering saturated fat seems to have less deleterious interactions with sugar. So it could be that, but that doesn't mean saturated fats are bad. It just means that we, in the presence of sugar, certain fatty acids can work a bit in a strange way in the body from what these observational studies have shown. But I'm not convinced, because they're just observational studies. I haven't really seen any clinical studies. Is this a clinical study? And it has to be in humans, not rats, because rats do have underlying saturated fat issues. They can't manage the sort of level of saturated fats that humans can. So if this is a rat study, don't bother me with it. It's bullshit. But if it's a human study, I would like to know. Email it to me, or I may have to look it up myself. But I do. If you could put it in the comments, if you know exactly what the study is, or a link to one of his videos or whatever, just put in the comments so I can grab it and take a look at it. I'd be really interested in, because usually when I do look at these things, because other people have brought it to my attention, and when I look into them, I realize that it's bogus. It's crap. There's the design of what they've done in the study, or the way they did it, or in non-humans and stuff like that, and didn't take into consideration certain enzymatic pathways that work differently in humans compared to animals. So that's an important difference in the way. A rat can't handle as well saturated fat, but it can handle glucose much better than even humans. So you see rats they're adapted very much to eating a lot of grains, going into silos full of grains and eating shitloads. So it's very hard to put a rat into ketosis as well. Very difficult. They literally have to lower the protein next to nothing and the sugar to zero, and literally it's like pure fat. It's like just giving them. And the funny thing is, if you give a rat that for a short amount of time, it sort of works, and then for a more prolonged period of time, if you give them pure oil, they get really sick. They never tell you this, because they never go over a certain period of time. So yeah, I've heard a lot of this sort of stuff, and when I actually look into it and then look at the studies, I go, oh, one of those. So people have been telling me for ages, oh, I saw this study and that study, and when I look at it, it's either a rat study or it's a study has design issues that contradicts other evidence, which is from clinical studies, which is far better, superior. So if it's an observational study, it's a waste of time. It's just nonsense. It's just people doing a standard shit diet, and the people that are doing a standard shit diet are people that are eating, yes, they may be eating more inappropriate foods. They may be getting slightly more saturated fat, but they're eating a whole lot of other inappropriate foods. Where somebody doing a vegan or vegetarian diet, a cleaner diet, which are a bit more mindful, in the honeymoon period, they may look better on paper, but it doesn't mean that they're basically healthier in the long run. So yes, a lot of these things are so confounded, and you have to be careful the way you interpret that sort of stuff. People just jump on shit all the time. It's like somebody asked me a question today, and it was basically about glycans and stuff like that. We don't know nothing. We're in the dark. This is how I characterize. It's called glycoscience. And it comes from the word glyko, which is a Greek word for sugar or sweet. So it's sweet science, in a sense. And glycoscience, I mean, you guys have heard me talking about the pericellular matrix around everything, the glycocalyx, and they've got they've got those sugar molecules at the tips. Everything, LDL, HDL, viruses, everything has cells around them. They have this pericellular matrix. It's a sugar matrix, and basically these sugar molecules, these glycans, or these, are basically signaling and interacting with each other and stuff like that. And some can be exploited by both viruses to basically trick them to think that they are the same and get inside and stuff like that. But the reality is we don't know shit about them. We've got all these theorizing, but we don't know shit. Basically, I'll give you an example. Everything to do with sugar science is as bad as in physics is the dark matter. We basically know fuck all about dark matter. We know more about dark energy, but we know fuck all about dark matter. And pretty much the glycoscience research is basically in the same category. That means it's just 100% nearly speculation on what is really happening. We know some things that are happening. I mean, like I talk about, the sulfonation and the negative charge to basically prevent things from sticking and stuff like that. We know this. We know some other signaling that happens between them to basically coordinate the cells, the way they attach themselves together. We know that some of this is also exploited by the modified glycocalyx on cells that are cancerous. But that's all we know. But we don't really understand mechanisms, why it works like that, how to make it optimal, how to make it better, and stuff like that. We're just basically in the Stone Age, So usually when people ask me, I go, well, I don't know. Because neither do the researchers know. They're just hypothesizing and speculating. It's just a new area of science at the moment, of biological science, which we're all fucking speculating. Where pretty much it's like the dark matter of the biology science. So basically, take a lot of the stuff you hear out there. That I know there was some researcher talking to Ivor Cummings. I haven't seen it yet. I will, after this, check it out. Maybe tomorrow, probably tomorrow, because it's going to be too late by the time this finishes. But you've got to take some of this with a grain of salt because, speculation is very dangerous. You can be led down the wrong garden path very easily. It doesn't. How does dairy affect people with autoimmune deficiently? I think you're talking about it. People that have an autoimmune effect from dairy. It's because they basically can't handle it because they just are lactose intolerant and stuff like that. That's one side of the things. And so those sort of people will react even worse. But usually, basically, if you're tight junctions, and things like good nutrition help in improving the reducing the gut permeability. So if you're eating properly and you've got the fat-soluble vitamins, you've got all the nutrients and stuff in there, taurine and a whole lot of other things, those tight junctions will work properly and you won't have autoimmune. If you've got high levels as well, because the collagen-degrading enzymes also need to be regulated in some tissue more than others, depending on which fat-soluble vitamin. But in particular, D3 plays a big role. It sort of plays an important role in the gut, together with retinol and MK4. In the lungs, it plays a much more important role in regulating the turnover of collagen within and the remodeling that happens in the lungs. That's why respiratory infections, you do better on vitamin D for that as well, not only because it regulates the macrophage and, provides support to the T cells, but also because of the collagen within the lungs itself, the way they function to function properly. But, when it comes to autoimmune disease, so I usually say that a large part of the autoimmune spectrum is a vitamin D deficiency to a large extent. So you increase your vitamin D, you will push down a lot of autoimmunity in that regard. There is some that other factors can play, like iodine and selenium in the thyroid-related issues are also plays, but also vitamin D is a player there as well. So, yeah, as I said, good nutrition usually trumps most of all the other nonsense and supplemental nonsense out there. Good nutrition first, And then if you have deficiencies or whatever, look at other things. But yeah, you got to be very careful about these things. Look, you got Maasai, they consume about 4.5 litres of milk a day on average. But, and other populations, if you're healthy and proper, you're not deranged, dysregulated, or damaged in any way, milk's fine. But if you are, then you're susceptible to a lot of things, to a lot of different proteins. You're far more susceptible. But if you want to damage your lung, the best way is go and have some bread, a bit of gluten. Go and take some raw gluten and see how much damaging effect it'll have on your gut lining. So if you're eating inappropriate things, you're asking for it. Don't come to me for sympathies. Just because you're fucking yourself up, clean yourself up, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get the right nutrition in there. And most things start falling into place, and only certain things. And that's where also I say genomics. Tell me what your genes are, and, we can look at certain factors, do some tests, some blood tests and stuff like that and others to find out where things are. And then we can appropriately, just talking this sort of reductionist garbage all the time. Oh, autoimmune, get appropriate stuff. A lot of these things go away. That's what I notice. When people are not doing these strange, bizarre experiments and just are eating properly and stuff like that, their body seems to find a homeostasis and starts regulating itself. It's when you're sticking too many other bloody things in there that the body's going, it's just, you're making a mess of it. Sometimes it's best to go to square, to basic stuff and build up from that than, try to, I'm going to supplement this, I'm going to supplement that, I'm going to, God, supplements should be used by somebody who knows what they're doing or somebody who can advise somebody appropriately. That means you go to somebody like Bart or Pim. I don't do, only for exceptional cases do I do basically consultancies. That means people that are near death, that have got really things like cancer, are deteriorating and stuff like that. That's the only, because I've only got a very small amount of free time that I can actually provide, because I do have a day job. But when it comes to generally this, good nutrition trumps everything. But if you've got certain little ailments or certain little things, I can just copy and paste, because I've got standard sort of things. I just copy and paste and I'll email it to you. And I'll say, do this, do that, whatever. A lot of the emails are standard. I mean, if you know some person that's received an email and look at their email, it's going to look very similar to what yours is if you've got the same ailment. So it's not a big job. I've actually done the hard work with other people. I just copy and paste a lot of it and just change a few, the people's names. At the end of the day, you just want the information. And I can only spend so much time of my free time in that regard. Ultimately, the best way to get health is with a cleaner diet. When I go full carnivore, I get dry lips, and also it seems heavy on my stomach, and it's forcing me to eat carbohydrates. Drinking milk helps with my stomach, it seems, but I still got the dry lips. Why? You may not be getting enough hydration. That may be an issue. You may need to increase your hydration. You may be dehydrating as well. There could be a number of factors why you're getting it. You may be also riboflavin deficient. A lot of cracking of and drying out and the cracking of lips and stuff like that usually is a riboflavin deficiency. And my dad had that in a more severe form. And I actually, because I know that he's not going to eat certain foods because he's 85 years old and he's stubborn. And so basically I just gave him a riboflavin supplement, B2 supplement, and it fixed it. So, what can you do? I'm not going to basically sit there arguing with an 85-year-old. It's not going to happen. So I just gave him the B2 and I fixed it for him. So But it could also be, I don't know, do you exercise a lot? Do you dehydrate a lot? Are you getting enough fluids? Is are your electrolytes balanced properly? There's there can be a lot of issues. Are you losing a lot of your electrolytes? Is carbohydrate helping because it raises insulin and retains in more fluids and retains in more electrolytes, potentially? And you may be feeling a bit better. Optimally, it's not going to be long-term better for you, but it may be basically taking some of the symptoms away. So what's your water management? Are you getting enough salt in there to keep, and hydration to keep those fluids? Have you fixed your electrolytes and all that? You secrete a certain amount every day. I'm doing a video on it this week because we need to cover this point. So do expect it. It may elucidate a few things that you're worrying about. Okay, so and what's this? Advise people who are on proton pump inhibitors, you've got to go slow. You've got to find a doctor who's sympathetic and bring it down slowly. Because when you've got a proton pump inhibitor, what you've done is you've actually artificially forced the body to create more pumps to pump out these ions to basically acidify your stomach more. Because you're trying to reduce the acidity, the stomach's going, well, fuck you. I need to acidify more to be able to absorb this food, and it's just upregulating. So if you come off, you will be producing far more acid than you can manage. So you have to gradually come off the dose. It's one of those things like proton pump inhibitors, blood pressure medication, all that, because it's tied to a lot of pathways, biological pathways. You have to basically come down slowly on these, lower the dose and adjust. So as you need to manage it with your doctor. So if you're changing your diet and your blood pressure is coming down, you need to adjust the dose so you don't pass out, obviously. And so these have to be done stage by stage. So it's something you can't just get out immediately. Where when it comes to something like, blood sugar medication or LDL statins or stuff like that, you can just get off them immediately, and you're not going to have any deleterious effects as long as you're changing and adjusting your diet, especially with the sugar side of things. If you get off metformin and you're going low carb, then it's not an issue. But if you're not, and you've still got a pancreas that's not operating very well, then you could have an issue with too much glucose in your bloodstream causing issues for you. So, it depends on those sort of cases. But in these sort of cases, you really need a good doctor to manage the dosage to come down slowly. So basically then the body will naturally, the less inhibition it has, the less pumps it will, it will start down regulating the amount of pumps that it has. And so it adjusts, the body will adjust, but it takes time. It takes a number of months, unfortunately. So this adjustment has to happen over a number of months in a slow way. And there are doctors out there that specialize in this, and you've got to seek them out and work with a doctor that knows what he's doing, that has done this. Okay. Now, that means there's a testing protocol as well to see where you're at, to basically determine the dosage and the adjustment. So I don't have neither the time nor the facilities or stuff like that to do something like that for you. You need to find a doctor to basically do that for you, and then appropriately adjust your dosage. So, yep. Now, when I got my 23andMe test run about 6 years ago, I opened the report and found that I was ApoE44. Scared the shit out of me. No need to scare the shit out of you. It just basically means you should never touch a carbohydrate in your life if you want good brain health. Simple as that. You are one of whether you consider yourself unfortunate or fortunate to have the original phenotype of our ancestors that have had it for the last up to 200,000 years. So as part of the Homo sapien group that you are a member of, that is for 150,000 years, we were all ApoE44s. And then about 200,000 years ago, some of us started becoming ApoE33s or 43s. And then eventually, about 80,000 years ago, we started getting members in the family that were 22s or 23s. So this is as about 200,000 years ago when we started seeing the temperatures on the planet starting to increase, and this sort of change in the fauna. And so the subcutaneous fat on big mega beasts started reducing slightly. And we had more competition. We had competition with the Neanderthals, with the Denisovans, and all these other hominins around. Even some, there was still at that time still some members of the Homo erectus family, and we were competing, and basically, by some of us, the majority of us now are 3-3s. By the majority of us being able to tap into some carbohydrates now and then, and that slipped us from a hypercarnivore state to a supercarnivore state because we started adding some seasonal carbohydrates. And we did that because we were able to engage the Randall cycle, get a bit fatter, and we were able to outcompete the others because we could manage, we had more sources of caloric intake. So we could actually increase the numbers of our tribal groups. So we could outcompete those other hominins. And I think that's what really pushed them to the periphery and eventually to oblivion because of reproductive success of the Homo sapiens over all these other groups. So that's the long story. Anyway, the short story is you're not fucked. It just basically means that the ability to clean beta amyloid is reduced, okay? Because up until that point, really, people with your phenotype did not have access to a lot of carbohydrates or very little. So it was a non-issue. So you could basically, your receptor, your HDL receptor, could basically say to the chylomicron remnant, welcome into the liver, mate, because there was very little sugar in the liver to cause any issues. And basically when that fat went in there, it got exported out as ketones and free fatty acid, and some of it got converted into glucose through gluconeogenesis, and it wasn't an issue and everybody was happy and the liver was happy. But, then we got into our agricultural days and we got more into these carbohydrate diets and all that. And, it, especially nowadays, the large amounts that the body can't manage. And as a consequence, these beta amyloid proteins you guys have a much slower capacity to clear them out. So one, you've got a slower capacity to clear them out because you never had that problem to deal with genetically. And the other thing is you never had the issue of sugar a lot in your diet to manage. So it didn't really matter if you were just pushing fats, remnant chylomicrons, into the liver because there wasn't much sugar in there to cause any insulin resistance or any sort of issues, metabolic issues. But now we live in the modern world with all you can eat buffet of shit. So obviously your genes are not really nobody's genes are really suited for this, but your genes are exceptionally not suited, where a 3-3 can basically is more efficient at clearing out beta amyloid at twice the rate, and a 2-2 even faster. The problem is that people like yourself really have to stay away from carbohydrate. Simple as that, less cheating is the best way to maintain good health. Because ultimately, if you put sugar in there, what sugar does is beta amyloid is actually a protective mechanism. In small amounts, it has a role to play there. It plays like an antioxidant type or protective mechanism, and then it gets cleared out. But when you add a lot of sugar, what happens is you get these things start sticking to each other. And then when you add seed oils as well, it actually produces these advanced glycation end products and actually just distorts and literally creates this sticky mess of beta amyloid, and because you're less efficient at clearing it out properly, it basically creates all these, between these junctions of the neurons, it creates all these messy disconnections and things are not communicating properly anymore. So the best way to break down beta amyloid is on a carnivore diet, on a low carbohydrate diet. It clears it out, and once it clears it out and it's been regulated and managed properly, you never have an issue. You will not have an issue. The majority of people nowadays that have basically got dementia and Alzheimer's are not 4/4s as a percentage. It's actually because a lot of the 4/4s are much more careful what they put in their mouths nowadays, where everybody else that is a 3/3, or you've got a buffet of crap. So as a consequence, they are the ones that are rising in greater numbers, even though they've got double the capacity to clear out amyloid. But because they're putting so much fucking sugar and so much seed oil, even the small amount that doesn't get cleared out fast enough is basically being bound into these this clumpy mess. And it's very hard to clear out. And that's the problem. And the problem is they don't realize that if you eliminate all, like they use these drugs, they tried these drugs, to get rid of all beta amyloid. What did they realize? People got worse because beta amyloid is protective in small amounts. It has protective role, then it gets cleared out. And then, because you cycle melatonin, this cycling of day-night circadian rhythms, because melatonin plays a big role in managing beta amyloid as well. So if that's managed properly, not an issue. You need some, not a lot, and not damaged and distorted and whatever else. And that's where the problem lies. So I would not worry unless you're a big carb eater. And I know, Chris, you've jettisoned all that shit and approach things much more carefully because you realize it. You're in a position where you're far more vulnerable when it comes to, clearing out properly or dealing with damaged. Now, what's the worst of the two to beta amyloid related issues? Seed oils, by far. When it comes to people with a 4/4, there is, all I can say is zero. Let me say that again. Zero tolerance to seed oils. Not, I'm going to have an indiscretion now and then. Zero. Do you want not to be demented or into old age? Zero tolerance to seed oils. Some sugar, occasional bit of a treat here or there, you can get away with. But when it comes to seed oils, with your genes, zero. I mean, I'm not kidding. Zero. That's how damaging it is. So there is, but you've got the information. What you do with it is your business. As I always say, people need to take responsibility for their own lives. But when I'm saying to that, I always say absolutely zero. Good. I can actually see the comment down there. Oh, God. Today it's been a friggin', It's been annoying. I'm going to have to go out again. Sorry about this, guys, because StreamYard has decided not to basically refresh again. Oh, God. Exasperation. They will get a very rude comment from me after this. I can tell you, a very rude comment. Anyway, let me get out of this again. Oh, God. And he's back. Oh, God. As you can see, there's the latest comment. Now let me find the other one. Oh, God, it's absolute frustration it is. It's been tonight. I don't know what's happening with StreamYard, but it's been a complete and utter fuck up on their side. Nothing is actually working properly at all. I can't get anything to work properly. It just is absolutely giving me the shits. Yeah, it's just not working. Bellbird, it's just really, it just won't refresh. As I showed you earlier, things, they stop and then it freezes up. It completely freezes up the actual comments. And the only way of actually is completely getting out, coming back in to the live stream to basically then put the stuff back. It's driving me up the wall, and it's sort of thrown me a bit because I get a bit of a flow and start ranting about different things and throwing in things, and it's thrown me a bit in terms of my momentum in a sense. So if I sound a bit all over the place, more erratic than usual, yeah, sorry. I'm being frustrated. Yes. No, I don't. Any of that sort of stuff. Some point, I mean, Bart keeps on telling me I should. Yeah, I'll probably at some stage. I'll see. What are the benefits of sun exposure other than vitamin D? Can it substitute for vitamin D? Look, when it comes to the sun, it is a great modulator of the circadian rhythms, hands down. Even in winter, get out in the early, as the sun, as basically dawn, early in the morning. You don't look at the sun. We're not like Zverich. We don't want to damage our eyes, but just get out there, and that initial light that actually modulates and tells your body, okay, we need to downregulate melatonin. We need to increase cortisol. We need to basically wake this person up, get this person going, get them going for the day, so they've got the energy to do things and stuff like that. In particular, in the old days, to go out hunting and and that sort of stuff. And then later on go out midday. So when you go for your lunch, don't sit in the office or in your home. Get outside. Go for a bit of a walk. I go for a walk, 1 or 2 hours. If I'm at home, working from home, 2 hours. If I'm basically, I try to stay out for longer. In my breaks, like morning tea and afternoon tea, 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock, I go outside. I literally go outside just to get the light, and that light will tell my circadian rhythms where they should be. So the light will basically tell me, and the body will get ready and say, okay, I need to bring cortisol down because in a couple of hours, I need to be pushing up melatonin. And you end up basically following this wave much better, and then you sleep better as well. So, the blue and eliminating the blue light in my home has done a lot of, it's fantastic. It's improved my light sensitivity. So I've got this sort of light at the moment, and as it gets a bit darker, I will switch to the red light. Yes, red light district. I know T1 and T2 will love that. They get excited by that sort of stuff. They're regulars on the red light district. Yeah, so look, vitamin D, try and get it from the sun. I do use supplements in winter when I'm in lockdown. Normally, I go to the tropics in the middle of winter for a month and actually rebuild my vitamin D stores naturally. But unfortunately, this year I wasn't able to do that because none of us can get out of Australia very easily without a lot of problems and consequences. So supplements are the next best thing. You should only, and let me be completely and utterly clear about this, your vitamin D supplements should be taken between 10:30 and 3 o'clock. Actually, not 3 o'clock, 1:30. So 10:30 to 1:30, within that window. I usually take my supplements of vitamin D at around 11 o'clock, 11:30, around that time. That's when I take them, which is the strongest UV point, and that's when I take my vitamin D supplements. And if I'm at home, I get outside after I've taken them to get the signaling through my melanopsin in my skin, the melanopsin receptors in the skin that will pick up on that and appropriately signal with my brain and all that to modulate all this sort of stuff appropriately. So it's all, even when you're taking supplements, you need to modulate it properly. Never take vitamin D at night. It will suppress melatonin and you'll get a lousy sleep, basically. So you need to be taking it at a much earlier time. Okay. So croissant diet is based on the work of Peter from Hyperlipid. Okay. I don't know anything about it. So I think I'm not going to make a comment about things that I absolutely don't know about. I suspect it's another one of those specialized approaches for a specific, a bit like the therapeutic version of the keto diet for people with epilepsy. So maybe something similar to that. I don't know exactly what it is. I would have to check it out. Yep, got to look into it, Harry. Really, yep. Yeah, look, I don't mind. I do want to look into it, and so I can make a comment in regards to it, stuff like that. It's like anything. I need to look in to the recent one that Ivor Cummings did as well on glycans, and actually I should use the word glycans. That's just all that stuff on the cells of the sugars on the actual cells. But it's sugar science. It's glycoscience, because it's not only the glycans, it is the pericellular matrix of every single thing in the body. It is all the glycocalyx within the endothelial cells. And it's all these sort of things, these sugars that are at the surface and their interactions with other things in the bloodstream or other parts of the body. And we don't know a lot about it. We're in the dark ages. It's like dark matter, the equivalent in terms of science, in biology. But I will check it out and see what Ivor and this academic are talking about, whether there's any bits of gold or it's just the regular, let's say, speculations on incomplete science. So, well, you never know. This guy or person may have made some insights beyond the traditional speculations that adorn this area of science currently. So I'll take a look and see what he has to say. Maybe it's just a regular bullshit, but it may be a few bits of gold here or there. One can only hope in that regard. Sometimes there are some good researchers out there. So Uh, okay, it has to have sardines and liver in. Is this the diet that you're talking about? Hyperlipid, sardines and liver. Okay, not sure if that's related to that. Anyway, okay, croissant diet relates to reactive oxygen species theory of obesity, suggests that stearic acid makes fat cells insulin resistant. Okay, thus preventing them from growing. It relates to mice experiments. Okay, yeah, I thought so. That's the same stuff that basically Paul Saladino, Salad Boy, is actually pushing currently. He's talking about this sort of stuff. This sort of reductionist nonsense, looking at rats and stuff like that, but nothing in humans. Look, it's nonsense. Because when you look at humans, when I was doing ketosis, a ketogenic diet, my obesity level, I dropped within 6 months something like 20 kilos. So, sorry, 15 kilos. 20 kilos through out my whole period is what I lost. And so it took me 5 or 6 kilos to lose by doing all the other stuff like low carb, paleo and all that. And then I hit keto for 6 months only, like really severe keto, where protein was down to 15%, zero carb, and fat was a certain percentage and the rest was coming from the body. And I can tell you I was losing weight like there was no tomorrow, even though I was releasing shitloads of free fatty acid and fatty acid that would have been PUFA, because I'd been consuming shitloads of, rancid seed oils for years. But what was I doing? I was using a low dose vitamin E to protect myself as I was releasing those free fatty acids of PUFA. But I was losing weight rapidly. So, this theory may work in rats, so, yep. But you know what I mean? Nobody eats stearic acid. They eat a whole food, So stearic acid also has, like palmitate, also has a reverse electron transport. So it can actually, in the electron chain, push electrons backwards, create a ROS, reactive oxygen species signaling through complex 1, and basically signal to the cell that we've got energy that we need to upregulate the biogenesis of new mitochondria. So it is a much more complex picture than just the stearic acid. You've got the deuterium side. If you put certain types of fats from differences, like PUFA from animals, less of a problem. PUFA from plants is more deuterium. That would do more damage, slow down, because the body is cleaving off these protons. These the hydrogens off on, as it's cleaving them off, what is called dehydrogenase through all these enzymatic processes. If you need to do more of that, you're going to slow down certain things the way they work. If you've got too many neutrons in the system, you may damage more nanomotors, which will reduce your efficiency in producing energy. So the picture of resistance is a much more complex. When we talk about insulin resistance, it's much more complex. It has to do, it's modulated by light. It's modulated by deuterium, by a number of factors. This sort of reductionist nonsense, stearic acid, but nobody's going to eat, like a kilo of stearic acid. And it would actually be very harmful if you did. It would really cause dysregulation in your body and extreme inappropriate signaling within the cells. So these people don't talk about this stuff, but they think all this reductionist nonsense and all that. That's what drives me up the wall. It's crap. It's all about, let's attack PUFA because it's one of their, it's just more reductionist nonsense. None of these guys will debate me because they just know that they've got no real leg to stand on, and it pisses me off. Anyway, they can ignore me. That's fine. If you guys continually post my comments on their fucking sites and link and share my comments and stuff like that, maybe some of their own people will start saying, well, why don't you actually debate, Harry? Why don't you basically, let's discuss these issues? Because this is just reductionist nonsense. Yeah, stearic acid can have an effect, but just because it has an effect, nobody's going to eat stearic acid as a food. You're just not. If you're eating tallow, large parts of it is basically monounsaturated fat. So, when you look at dairy, which some of these guys demonize, has got far more saturated fats. They can do a lot more better for your health in that regard. So then it's issues whether you can actually deal with lactose and all that, and that's a different issue altogether. That depends on the person. There's a lot of other factors. So let's put it this way, it's a complex story when it comes to everything. G'day, Mandy. Good to see you here. And he claims that it's not the carbs which are fattening, but the linoleic acid. It's worth checking. Yeah, this is ignoring Randall cycle. It's basically saying, well, it's not the Randall cycle. It's basically the seed oils. Bullshit. As I said, I was releasing free fatty acid in terms of PUFA that came from seed oils that I had consumed for many years that gave me my cardiovascular issues. But I still lost 15 kilos in 6 months because I didn't engage the Randall cycle. And I was in deep ketosis and I was losing fat like there was no tomorrow. So a load of crap. Excess calories or engaging the Randall cycle by consuming mixed macros and stuff like that will basically slow down fat loss. Simple as that. Where linoleic acid coming from seed oils, you've got the problem is your mitochondria needs to oxidize fats and glucose. If you're putting too much deuterium in there and damaging too many nanomotors, you're not going to be basically, oxidizing enough of that energy. So if you don't oxidize enough of that energy and you're slowing down the ability to oxidize that energy, as you can see, it's a more complex picture. Then basically those receptors are going to be down-regulated. Your GLU4 receptor is going to be down-regulated. Your CD36 receptor is going to be down-regulated. Why? Because you don't want to be taking too much stuff in. But if you basically got PUFA from a pig, for instance, which is low deuterium, not a problem. First of all, it'll get converted to arachidonic acid, still be low deuterium, so it won't be a problem. So, insulin resistance, they say, insulin resistance rises with age. Bullshit. Insulin resistance does not rise with age. It rises because you have more metabolic dysfunction as you age on a SAD diet. That's the difference. Somebody who was a Maasai warrior up to the age of 80, same blood pressure, same lipid metabolism, same level of inflammation, all that. He's just older, because there's more cell division. But, North American Plain Indians, warriors, 70 years old, like Sitting Bull and all these sort of characters could jump on a horse and go into battle at 70. Some 50-year-olds or 40-year-olds can't do that. So, it's just nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. So if you're eating a purely carbohydrate, we know pure carbohydrate carbs will not make you fat. We know by the catabolic nature of veganism. We call it the Church of Anorexia Vegana. If you're eating basically fruit all day and all that, you're not going to get enough calories, which is one thing. And you're also not mixing any mixed macronutrients. So you're basically just in a catabolic state, burning sugar like mad. But that's, and you've up-regulated all the enzymatic pathways to support that. But it's not a healthy way. Long term, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to your mitochondria. And in the long run, you'll end up skinny fat. And then when you go back to a normal diet, you'll just balloon out into a fat, slob. So, we've seen it happen. Where with a clean keto diet, on the other hand, and when you know where you're coming from, you've heard me, you've come from basically a situation where you've used a lot of these seed oils and stuff like that. You're on a low dose vitamin E, you're dealing with it. Less of an issue when you're releasing those free fatty acids in. But, it has a lot to, because a lot of toxins and stuff get stored in the fat cells, and a lot of that gets dumped out. And so depending on what your past indiscretions were, you're going to get certain symptoms and certain issues. And they're going to vary depending on the person and what they've been doing in the past. Exactly. So it's a far more complex. This sort of reductionist nonsense is just crap, Linoleic acid coming from seed oils is bad. And a lot of these are done on rats, and they can't even convert most of the linoleic acid like humans can to arachidonic acid. So what does that tell you? Crap. And we know that any of these guys, if you say, does arachidonic acid cause this issue? They'll say no. So the rats actually exhibit this because they're bad converters. Humans don't have that issue. So why would this be an issue in humans? You've already defeated that argument automatically just by saying that. They have to explain why, and they have to show you an example, a clinical study. None exist. So basically, they've already lost that argument. This is why you can tear these arguments down to bits very quickly, like Bart, I do the same way, because there are a toss. Anyway, let's move on. My throat is drying out from too much talking today. Raw liver, yummy. Yes. With a nurse on the side. Is that it? Yes. Wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't go near any one of those two. Fraught with danger. Fraught with a lot of danger. Yeah, you know my thoughts. I've talked about it before, Alex, about MSM sulfur. It's one of the better ones, and sulfur is really good. Sulfur is used for a lot of biological processes. Plays a big role in the sulfonation of all the pericellular matrix, even though we don't fully understand how it works in interactions. So when you've got the pericellular matrix of one cell that's sulfonated with a pericellular matrix of the another, and they are interacting and signal, we don't really understand whether sulfonation. We know that that sulfonation has certain effects on certain parts, like the lipids and your endothelial cells, but we don't know, because it usually sits a slightly deeper in there, in the glycans, and I'm not really sure. We don't really know how it may influence the signaling either. So there's a lot of things that we don't know. We know that it's endemic. Sulfur is endemic throughout the whole body, and most of our modern diets are sulfur poor, and we end up suffering for it. But all the biological requirements are still, there's a lot that we don't know in that regard. But I would say that most people are quite deficient and probably should supplement a bit with MSM, because most people, they won't consume a lot of eggs. They won't consume, I tend to consume more liver and eggs and stuff like that, and just use MSM here and there occasionally when I'm not eating those sort of foods. But I know other people, they just will not. I struggle with Dad sometimes, because I go, did you eat liver this week? And he goes, oh, I forgot. Did you take your supplement? Yeah, I did take MSM. Fucking dodgy as dog shit sometimes. these old people, they lie. So, yeah, I have to basically just sometimes check to see, has he used this at all, or is it just sitting there and I'm buying it for no reason? Yes. Anyway, family issues. Yes. But, yeah. G'day, Zombie. Good to see you here. Got a few fans. Some questionable fans as well. Yes. Gone from a doctor to a nurse. Yeah, no. I'm not even going there. People can identify as they like. Tomorrow, he may be basically, a plane, a tiger. He can identify as potentially many things, inanimate or animate. Thanks. God, don't get these too excited. You'll be in trouble. Double trouble. Yeah, I know. Fucking it's yeah. So you guys went from doctors to nurses. You guys are real sick fucks. Yes, what can one say? Oh, God. Correlation, speculation, blah, blah. People who generally limit saturated fats also limit processed foods, sugars, and plant oils. Yeah, smoking, drinking. A lot of this is so damn confounded. And then in animal models, the conversions or the ability to use some of these sort of things is very different, because take rats. Rats are consuming more grain type foods and stuff like that. Yeah, they'll eat a bit of meat, but they primarily eat a lot of grain based things. And most of the meats are very lean meats that they consume, like other little animals, which are very protein or more protein, very little fats. So when it comes to fat metabolism in that regard, they usually are getting it from plants and stuff like that, which tends to be higher in certain things and much lower in saturated fats. So they don't have the same enzymes that we have. And that's an important thing to differentiate. So that's why I say, rat studies are rat studies. How many times have there drug companies that do rat studies that they go through with flying colors and then they try the same medication on human volunteers and it's a flop and it gets shelved because it's got too many side effects and it doesn't work properly? Worked great in the rat. When it hit the human, didn't work. And this is the problem. This reductionist nonsense drives me up the wall because it's just pseudoscience and doesn't really help anyone, doesn't make anyone healthier or anything like that. It's just nonsense. Yeah, exactly, Zombie. Thanks for pointing that out. You got a tick of approval from Nurse Trouble. Harry, what would you think someone should supplement and avoid or look at if they had ADHD? Now, if you've got ADHD, if somebody's got ADHD and stuff like that, I would look at phospholipids very much, and usually some of the precursors like choline and stuff like that. Obviously try and get the, negative stuff like seed oils and sugar out of the diet. That's a given because especially the sugars cause a lot of excitatory sort of behavior. And also some of the actual lipid damaging effects of the seed oils are not good at all because that affects signaling in the brain and other tissue. So, but in particular, in this case, the brain. So a lot of brain issues with phosphatidylserine, phosphatidylcholine, and things like phospholipids. You can actually get actual phospholipids. And, you can supplement, but I usually say to people, just have more eggs. They are, and you can actually make, like, let's say you want to make something with cream and throw in some cheese and some eggs and make some sort of mixture which you can cook up for kids and stuff like that. They'll eat that shit. they'll eat it because they like it, and they can get far more phospholipids from the eggs in that diet like that. So that's one way of actually sort of giving him those sort of things. And potentially, choline supplement, whether you provide a smoothie or maybe milk, you could put that. You could sort of choline is a bit. It can create a bit of an aftertaste effect with milk, I find. Maybe I'm trying to think some sort of juice that you could probably use. I'm not sure about coconut, like a sort of a coconut mixture, whether that would basically work with the, about the taste and all that. I don't give a shit about that. I just put it in water and drink it, so it doesn't, I'm just used to it. But with kids, it can be an issue where the taste of the choline supplement can really be off-putting for them. I know one lady that she actually gives her autistic son, choline, a few other things, and that's really helped improve him. A very low dose melatonin because he doesn't sleep really well. You don't want a high dose. That's really bad. You just want a really low dose. You can actually get, like low dose, and then you snap it into 4. Because a lot of these kids get exposed to blue light, too much blue light as well, which is not good either. So there's a lot of issues when you're contending with kids in the modern world that are at play. You don't want to naturally affect their melatonin level production that actually happens and down-regulate that. That's why you stick to much lower doses and trying to get them into a sleeping pattern where then you can withdraw the melatonin. They just get into a normal sleep cycle. And it's a short-term intervention in a very small dose, which is a quarter of the natural production. So if you want more details, email me, and basically I will give you some more specific supplementations and stuff like that you can take for a certain period of time as an intervention, and then sort of look at the dietary side to sort of focus, and some meal plan type approaches. Give me the age brackets of the kids, which is important, because that also helps to understand, what their taste buds are going to be, because taste buds change as you become from a child to a teenager and all that. And so you need to take those things into consideration, because if you're going to provide something consistently, you need to be able to keep those. So it's with teenagers growing, hormonal changes, you got to be sensitive to all these factors. It's, not one factor, there's a lot of factors at play. And also with females and males, there are some differences as well with their hormonal changes that happen, so there's issues there as well. It seems, girls seem to, at a much younger age, and even today, especially with some of the actual dysregulation, it can actually happen a bit earlier. But yes, my son improved. He's on a keto, gluten-free diet. Okay. But there are still some issues. Yep. Actually, I think the dairy may be the remaining issue. That could be. Yeah, it could be dairy. Could be an issue. Especially if it's not raw, and especially if they don't have the enzymes. They can't transcript sufficient enzymes. They've got some low-grade, maybe issues with their gut permeability, which can be another issue, and you may have to correct that first, which basically may mean a bit more eggs and phospholipids and stuff like that, which can basically help with the gut lining, some of the fat-soluble vitamins. So can be a number of things that can actually help better with that sort of stuff. Okay, drop the penis, also cold turkey after a while on carnivore, lost a bunch of weight. Yes, proton pump inhibitors. Yes, they can take a bit of time sometimes. Like some people just bite the bullet, but they do give themselves a lot of discomfort when they do that. So, but you're welcome, mate. Good to hear, mate. Good to hear. And again, we're locked at there. So I have to go out again. Sorry, I'll be back. God almighty. This stream's been a headache. Sorry, guys. It's been pathetic. Driving me up the wall. Okay. Vegan internets. What sort of porno site are you looking at? That's not Jasmine, is it? On that? You're a sick puppy. Yeah, it did get glycated. Nice one, T2. See, T2's actually using his brain. Are you nursing him back to health? Yeah, the top Tassie devil down here. I'm in Queensland. I have no need for subs. Yeah, exactly. If you're up there, you're lucky. In winter, we freeze our asses off down here, zombie. We definitely do. Doctor Who prescribed. Doctor Who? Okay. You've got good contacts. Prescribed PPIs. Have no plans to get PPIs back off them again. I've been there twice, 10 years apart. Managed to repair the issue and the problem PPIs caused over the space of months. Yep. I'm glad. They are more harm. They cause more harm. G'day, Lukey. Good to see you, mate. What is the fucking time over there in Brazil? Yes, Dr. Lukey. Yes. He wanted to balance all you nurses. Yes. Hey, Loki, you should make something of all these nurses. T1, T2, and trouble. You're trying to manage them. My son improved his ADHD a lot on keto, gluten-free diet. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that was the other part about the milk. Yeah, sometimes it's best to go just clean back to to just pure, sort of a pure carnivory, and then go from there, but get things fixed in that regard. Very important that the gut permeability is sorted, and when it comes to fat soluble vitamins, very important in that regard. It may mean some tallow, some ghee is much safer to throw in ghee in creating some sort of like dairy type product, which has none of the proteins or the sugars. Some can tolerate do okay with things like butter, just butter itself. So it depends on the child where it's at any point. So it's always a good idea to play around with things. So you're not. So you're female? Is that it? Or are you an attacked helicopter? No, you're an attack helicopter. That's it. You're an attack helicopter. So, yes, I do apologise. You're not male. You're an attack helicopter. So, no wonder she wanted to nurse you back to health, or from your yes, you know what I mean. Sick little mind. We're talking about a canny 9-year-old kid who eats salmon, oysters, steaks, and dairy, some fruit, and some rice. Okay, so fruit can be an issue with ADHD in some cases. Rice, less of an issue, but fruit can be an issue because fruit is a seasonal thing, not all year round. And it tends to, I have seen where, but look, a lot of the studies were on high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that, on high amounts of fructose. I suspect you're not giving your son fruit which is high in fructose, but in very small amounts. So, but then again, who knows, the susceptibility. It's hard with these. Sometimes it's best to just eliminate, see what happens for a month or two, and then introduce and see, do you go back to where you were? And then you know, okay, the tolerance is even lower. So it's sometimes elimination and putting back and seeing the response, putting back fruit, taking it out, putting dairy, taking it out, and seeing the sort of response you're getting each time you're doing that to see. But it's always hard to manage these things with kids because it's really hard to discipline kids. Because even you may remove it from your house, some of these items, they may venture beyond the house and access this sort of stuff. So it's never an easy thing. Look, I understand. It's always difficult in that regard. So I'm sympathetic in your difficulty in that regard. But if you can, try a bit. Okay. She's a nurse. You need to go and find your fantasies somewhere else. May cross-dress for you. Don't even think about me. Nice one, T2. Just say, I'm an attack helicopter. See, we're back into, I have to go back out. Do you realise that, guys? I'm stuck again. I'm stuck here. I can't go any further. For friggin', it's gonna. Okay, I'm out and I'll be in again. See you shortly. God almighty. I'm back. It's crazy tonight. Now, let me find my spot. Yep, that was where we were. Yes. How can one solve adrenal fatigue? Adrenal fatigue, really, sodium does help. It does help. Usually people that get a lot of adrenal fatigue is due to stress, and sodium does suppress cortisol. Proper circadian rhythms also help. Proper sleep will help as well in that regard. Proper nutrition. There's a number of things that you can actually do. So if you're suffering from this, send me an email and tell me exactly what situation you're in. You don't need to, you don't need to go on a public sort of thing to tell me personal things, but just tell me where you're at, other things, what diet you've come from, your current endocrine state, your current weight, whether you've got weight issues or whatever. Just give me an idea of what state of your body's in, what you've actually gone through and stuff like that. Some of the tests that have actually given you some information, all that, and then I can give you a bit of a plan to basically get your health back. That's probably better than just little bits here and there that are disconnected and are not looking at the total person, which is much more important to do that. Okay. Who cares? Don't worry about them. G'day, Dominic. Good to see you, mate. Woke up quite early. Wonder what happened. Uh, and we've got the technician here. We've got the Dr. Treadmill technician. Yes, yes. Mr. Gregor himself, on the treadmill. Oh, you love ghee. Is that plant-based? Must be. Yes, I suspect, yes, T2 doesn't want to be sticky. And the things that T1 gets up to, I suspect he's very sticky. And the nurses. And we're not getting any further, are we? So, yeah. Oh, God. It is painful. So I'll just read out of here because it's just, I'm going to top myself. Harry's on dial-up tonight. Yeah, tell me about it. I'll be having my thyroid checked again soon enough. This is Luke here. Dr. Luke here, including auto-antibody levels in preparation for the start of my carnivore diet. Up your vitamin D levels, mate. Up your vitamin D. Check your vitamin D status. That's really important. And get back to me. Send me an email, and I will send you through some information about making sure you're getting certain things in your diet that are going to be supporting your basically your thyroid function. So I've provided some of that, and there's a bit of a diagram there. There's a image that actually shows some of the bone related issues with thyroid and stuff like that. So there's a couple of issues there that I've been dealing with people with osteoporosis and all sorts of other things. So yeah, send me something through and I will then email you back some information. And it's good to hear that you're endeavoring to move in the right direction on a dietary side. Okay, Dr. Gregor's treadmill technician. Present, I was listening all along, but in silence, just video voyeurism. You dirty, dirty doc. And yes, I think Blinky really loved that voyeuristic side of you. I'd be careful. I'm okay being an attack helicopter. Some people are so happy. I'm happy for you as well. Nurse Trouble. G'day, Scotty. Chopper Trouble, yeah. Hey, careful for those ears. They don't get chopped off. Chop, chop. Chopper reads. Anybody that's an Australian knows that joke. Anyway, LOL, Lukey. Sorry, you're a young, healthy boy. You will do. Fix. Yes. We'll find. Yeah, he will. He will. Look, he just needs to because he's been on a very high carbohydrate diet for a very long time, which isn't very good and healthy, and tends to be, a lot of these foods tend to be very nutrient deficient that cause a lot of these problems. Okay, so what is Scotty saying? Image of Chopper Reed in a nurse outfit is not a good one. No, it fucking isn't. It's a scary one. Can you imagine? Chopper in a nurse. Oh, God. You're not helping, Scott. Cheers, big ears. I'm looking forward to this diet, zombie. I have a good potential to heal. Yes, you do. I'm still laughing with those other characters. Sick little puppies they are. Let me just enable. I'm middle-aged, fat, sick lady. I wish I had started this when I was in my 20s. Yeah, look, we all have, those sort of issues and all that. I mean, things like postmenopausal, get some boron in because that helps to regulate the hormones in that period, in that middle-age period. So, and also, if you're doing zombie, just don't go, you definitely don't want to be close anywhere to 20, but go to 12 for about, depending on how, how, certain your hormones may be a bit out of whack. If they are quite out of whack, go to 12 for about a month, then drop for a week to 9, then drop to 6, and stay there for the rest of the year or maybe 2. And if things improve, then basically drop to 3 grams for the rest of your life, basically. It's okay. I've been carny for my 30-year-old boyfriend loves it too. Yep. Okay. Not a problem. If you've sorted a lot of this stuff out, you don't really have to worry then. Okay. Great. Good to hear. I'm trying to heal the sick Harry. I'm trying to heal the sick Harry. Are you calling me sick? But they may be beyond my help. Oh, you're trying to, those other two. Okay, I'm with you. You mean, yes, the sick, those two sick. Yes. Harry, but they may be beyond my help. Yes, they probably are. They can't handle attack helicopters, those two. You should know. Yes. Plenty of issues there with those two. It's a worry. So, sorry, I'm going to be reading from here because I'm sick and tired of going in and out. And Dr. Lukey boy, it's funny. I can imagine that maybe by the time I have my first white hairs, most of my friends will be having problems walking. Yeah, probably. So, yeah, you're getting in it at a much earlier stage. You'll be a hell of a lot better for it. You will not fix T1 and T2. Well, fix has many meanings. Snip, snip. Yes, I know. And T2. Oh, Harry. Oh my fucking God. Is all I can say about this whole situation with you two. God, uncontrollable tonight. Yeah, I've already consumed that. Forgot about that. Back to the water. Yes. In that regard. Anyway, we're down to 13 minutes. The last or the final straight, so to speak. Okay, any thoughts on causes of headaches? I see a lot of possible causes, including gallbladder issues, salt mineral deficiencies. Yeah, they can have an effect. I usually say a lot of them actually have to do with the gut liver sort of nexus. Gallbladder tends to be a big issue. It's easy to work out the gallbladder. For instance, if you actually put your fingers under the actual rib cage and actually massage the gallbladder itself, I think it takes about 5 minutes to sort of softly massage it and all that. And actually, if the headache goes away, you've got a gallbladder issue. So that's a quick one. That's an easy one. So if you're getting, sort of issues with your gallbladder and, they may be minor and you're not aware of them, because sometimes it may not be stones. It may be just sludge. So you're still getting bile coming through, but you've got a lot of sludge, which is causing some irritation. And that irritation then through the nerves in the back where, you've got the bile ducts that are coming through, the nerve endings that come around there in that part of the back can sometimes fire up and actually give you a headache. So that could be the cause of it. In many cases, gut related issues can cause a lot of the headaches. Some people say they're up to 85% of the headaches. I haven't really seen any studies on that. Nobody's really knows, because when they usually look at these, they say it's all idiopathic, or the majority of it is idiopathic, which basically means we don't fucking know. But from anecdotal evidence, I've noticed with other people that I've interacted in, both from my own experiences, that most of when I had a lot of really severe issues, gut, gallbladder type issues in the past, I had far more frequent headaches. And I haven't had a headache now for ages. So I think there is definitely something related to that. Yes. So if you massage that area in the head, it goes away. Sometimes you may have to, on the other side where your pancreas is, massage it under the rib cage there a bit, and there do it much softer. Don't go hard, because the pancreas is a bit more sensitive. But on the side where your liver is, on this side, so your right hand, not your left hand, but your right hand side. So the right hand on that side, where your liver is. So there you can be not forceful, but you can be a bit more, a bit firmer, but not forceful. Don't be forceful, just firmer in sort of massaging that, to try and actually push the sludge and stuff, and sort of get things moving a bit, the motility of that sort of area to be a bit, but on the other side also, where the bile ducts are coming into the pancreas, that is way more sensitive. So be much milder in the way you sort of massage that area. It's more like a mild type of massaging under the rib cage there, not like too much. Where on the other side, you can apply a bit more pressure, but not too much as well. Just don't go crazy. Okay. I have been called the fixer before. You've been called a lot of things, but we won't go into that. You turned pet sterile, Blinkers. You seem to know a lot about him. Harry, thanks. I'm going outside in the sun. Good luck with StreamYard. Yeah, I know. I will listen on the phone. Bye, everybody. See you, mate. Take care, Alex. Yes. Get a bit of sun, mate. And sometimes that helps. This is by our dear friend, the technician. Helps indeed. Other times it doesn't. Go away. I'm on malic acid. Good. That will actually soften the damn things. Enzymes, boron, to hopefully reduce the damage of my vegetarian adventure. Yes, very much. So, look, a lot of these sort of issues are, like use it or lose it. If you don't use sufficient bile, if you're eating animal products, you're using bile all the time, that whole thing works properly. If you're not, and the other thing is also, to break down the stones and all that, you need choline and MK4. If you're not eating animal foods, you're not getting enough choline. You're going to be choline deficient, and you're going to be MK4 deficient, which means that you're not basically producing enough bile to break down the cholesterol, and you end up with cholesterol stones or sludge. So, you're not eating species appropriate foods that you're designed for, that your body, and you end up with gallstones. This is why when we went low animal foods down to 30%, and we went high, and it's questionable whether you can call some of the concoctions that they've come up in the fast food industry as animal foods. At 30% is just Frankenstein animal foods, and the remainder of 70% is all plant-based. We're basically 70% plant-based in most advanced Western countries. And a lot of the third world countries and developing countries now are starting to gravitate towards that as well, unfortunately. So in that regard, it's a goddamn issue. So, if you go back when people were doing 50% fat in the diet, of course, bladder issues were very unknown. But since we went high carbohydrate, low fat. They've just gone through the roof. And it's not surprising because we're not eating a species-appropriate diet of the foods that help these sort of things. So, yeah, big issue. Okay, now where the hell was I? Okay. Christopher Pine calls himself the fixer. Yes, he does. he's one of the funnier ex-politicians. On the headaches, etc., I had heard Hashimoto's not always presently directed with a thyroid, restrictions of blood vessels to the brain is another, possible migraines, etc. Yeah, look, migraines are a bit of a different thing. They're not the same as headaches. Migraines, there are other neurological and other sort of real issues, but just a stock standard headache, a lot of them actually have to do with this sort of your gut. You've got all these sort of nerves and signaling that comes from your gut to your brain, and if that's not really working well, and a lot of us nowadays because of poor diets, and a lot of us are ex-poor dieters like myself and many others, but a lot of the poor dieters have got a lot of issues. What does Zombie say? Right side headaches usually gallbladder. Yeah, exactly. And it's usually on this side, the right. Yeah. And it's definitely true. And a lot of them, that's where most of my headaches were in the past. So, yeah, they were definitely related to that. We'll look into that as well. Thanks. Yeah. Send me an email and I will send you some info. We got 4 minutes, guys. 4 minutes. So you want to throw any more questions at me? And keep the animal husbandry ones to yourselves. Never going back to a plant-based bread diet. Don't tell my boss, please. We won't. It'll be our secret. Isn't that right, T1 and T2? You'll be silent about this issue, will you not? Or I will send the nurse around to deal with you. Nurse Trouble will sort you two out. Down to nearly 3 minutes. Any last minute questions, ailments, funny things that you've heard that we can laugh about, last minute laughs, any hilarious moments in your life? I'll take anything at this point. Not picky. No, T1. I hope so. No. I am picky on some things. Nurse Trouble won't come near me, remember? Doesn't like birds. God, construed in so many ways. God, I'm just lucky I'm not monetized. It would be a mess. There'd never be one thing that would ever get monetized with my sort of language. Who cares? Google, YouTube can stick it up there, yeah, where the sun doesn't shine. Anyway, 2 minutes, people, 2 minutes. So Scott, I've had almost as many issues with this stream as you, Harry. Yeah. Harvey Bay with my phone, tether, my phone running. Look, it's nothing to do with, I've got high speed internet, 50, I've got, high speed, 50 megabits per, so it's not an issue. I've never had an issue. I've got really fast download, upload, or any of that sort of stuff. That's on it. It's just StreamYard tonight. For some reason, their server isn't responding properly in replicating the stuff from YouTube to their side. This is not happening on my computer. It's happening externally. It's on their computer that actually is not refreshing properly. Something's actually just literally gone haywire. So yeah, not happy. Nurse Trouble has been blinkered on live for half the stream. Damn right, Sardine Boy. Yes, we got to laugh. We got to laugh. If Blinkers got canned, did he ever? Yes, she'll keep him in line. She'll sort him out. Anyway, this has been, I mean, the funny thing is I can't even, it's not even telling me how many people are actually on the live stream currently watching it. Nothing on StreamYard tonight is really working properly. I've got no idea what. No, that's not giving me any information. Yeah, it's really weird tonight. It's been really just very weird in its functionality. So, yeah, what can one say? Lambs, 22. So, is that a sexual position or an age? If I was Sardine Boy, I suppose I would have, and he's thinking about it, say 23 here. YouTube has shown from 17 to 27 tonight. YouTube's fucked most of the time anyway, but that's another issue. Bowball is Sardine Boy. Is he now? Liver and sardines. So it's basically just deteriorating from what I can see. There's no more questions. Anyway, we're over the 3-hour mark. Guys, it's been great. I've had fun. We've talked about a few things and a few people and all that, which has been interesting. There's a few characters that I have to do a bit of research on now that I was not aware of. And some of the things that they are saying or maybe saying or whatever. So I'll do a bit of research. Do ask me next week about these characters, and I will have certain opinions about them and what I think they are saying and where they got it wrong, if they got it wrong, or whether they've actually come up with something fairly good. That may be the case. So I will check to see what the quality of their science is, that they are resting their hat on. If it's basically, just dodgy stuff from that is, associational, observational, or rat studies, I don't think it's going to be that applicable to humans. So I don't think we're going to really worry too much about that sort of crap. Anyway, we will push on, and been a good night. Thanks, Harry. Not a problem, Bowbird. Thank you for being here and for some of the extra humor and comedy. Do appreciate it. Thank you. It was a nice start of the day. It's lunchtime here. I'm glad, Dr. Gregor. Don't forget to put your treadmill aside for the day. Nurse Trouble. Thanks, Harry. Thanks, everyone. Yep, appreciate it that you were here. Thanks for adding to the humor. Lambs, thanks. Good night, mate. See you all. Yep, thanks, mate. See you as well. Okay, guys. Treadmills for life. Nice one. Anyway, good night. Appreciate you guys being here. I hope you got something out of it. And I will see you next week, and expect some videos to be produced this week and released on a few of those issues that we always talk about. So the issues that we need to sort of settle rather than continually talk about. Anyway, take care. Good night, or have a good day if you're much earlier in the daytime in parts of Europe. And if you're in parts of Central Asia, it's still going to be earlier in the day. And if you're at this end of the globe, you will be in, 9, 10 o'clock. So I hope the rest of your evening is a good one, and I will see you guys and characters and attack helicopters next week. See yous. Good night. Bye.